I will call to order a special meeting of the Wellington Board of Selectmen. Today is Monday, February 8th at 6:32 p.m. The first item on the agenda is present to speak. I don't see anyone outside of the public. I'll try unless you want to be under present to speak, but I'm sure you might have enough to say later. Okay, I'll move on to item B, which is to review the remaining budget. And have you all received the email? Can you see the budget from Donna? Would you like me to share it on the screen? Would that be helpful?
I have it up here, but
okay,
other people might want it.
Okay. Okay. Hi, Donna. Okay, so you can see with all of the requests that have come in, and I believe the current numbers you see for capital reserve on the front page, you'll see the total of the Board of Selectmen budget at an increase of currently, we haven't done any work, we've just heard requests at 14.7%. And that's an increase of $518,311. The bottom portion you'll see is capital improvement, and those dollars do hit local funds in the Selectmen's budget, and that is an 18.4% increase. I will, for clarification, tell you that CIP is still working. We have not voted and finalized year one. We meet again on Wednesday. I believe from our last discussions, we were pretty set on year one, but there still needed some work to be done in the plan as a whole. So these numbers are not final from that committee to come before us. All right, so let's highlight some, oh, thank you, Heather. Highlight some increases here. We'll go to page 2. Page 2 of the document, which is page 1 of the budget. You'll see we'll go department by department, if you will. So the first department is the Selectmen's Department, 111. We have gone flat with salaries. If you recall, we had the discussion, we are in a negotiation year. So when we get later in the budget, we do have a placeholder for negotiations built in, but we won't talk about what that is with any specifics because we are negotiating. So the increase here is a 0.6% increase. Again, the salaries could change this item. The 2 increases were in commissions, 300. The Historic District Commission asked for an additional $400 within their budget. And then I have asked for increase again so that we can have a town-owned cell phone for the first selectman. So those are the only increases that you see in the selectmen's budget at $990. We can take these department by department if we really want to have some discussions about each department, but if we feel that a department has a solid budget that we are comfortable with, we can take them one at a time. Is there anything specific either of you would like to talk about under the selectmen's budget?
No.
Okay. Moving on, the next item is 130, which is accounting services. That comprises our finance office. I won't continue to reiterate the salaries, you'll see flat. Accounting software support, you'll see an increase of 1517. Training and education, $840, and salaries left flat. So currently an increase in that department of $2,357. And the increase in the software support was the annual cost of Visions. Any questions regarding accounting services?
No.
None. The next item, and again, I'll point out for the selectmen looking at the budget, the shaded areas fall under general government, but not the selectmen portion of the budget. So we're going to skip down to 134, which is the assessor. And the assessor had a decrease in cost for computer support, a decrease in the tax mapping, an increase in assessor supplies, and an increase in training and education. A total net increase of $759 in that line item. I had some questions, and mainly because my notes from when Walter presented, he had asked for $1,270 in assessor supplies. And then increase the civils to $250. So I'm not sure where the 2050 came from. No, I apologize. He asked for $2,000. Okay, so I'm looking at his, I think that's my mistake. He's done his budget reverse of how we look at it. The request is in the beginning, so 700. I no longer have any questions about that. Do either of you have any questions regarding the assessor's budget?
Not really.
Okay. Revenue collector, Department 137. You'll see the only increases are in DMV fees and computer support. Or a total increase in the department at $470. Any questions regarding revenue? Okay. Moving to the next page. I have requested that we leave our attorney fees, town council, Department 141, flat at $32,000. So you see no increase there. Any questions or concerns with that department? All right, town clerk. There is an increase in, all right, so the salaries, if we leave those flat, Donna, I don't believe that salary reflects the current town clerk. You're muted. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Oh, there you go.
I think I got it. Okay, so the change is netted out in the placeholder.
Okay.
So I left everything flat for salaries, and when there's a change, it's reflected in the placeholder.
Okay. So is there a reason why the assistant town clerk
Yes,
has a $400 change?
yes, because when Robin divided out the money from miscellaneous, she asked me to put $400 in Rachel's salary line.
Okay. Oh, I see. So she's not using miscellaneous, but she had, if I recall, she had anticipated using those dollars to cover extra hours
Yes.
in her department. Okay. That makes
Yes.
sense. And now I see at the bottom, she has miscellaneous, do not use. Okay. The only other increase was in election expenses for $255. So originally she had a miscellaneous line item of $2,900. She accounted for $400. Do we know what happened to the other $2,500?
Yes.
Isn't that what's broken out above?
Yes.
Okay.
It's broken out above.
I just want to be sure.
So the training and education line item dues and conferences
Um,
and office supply. No, that's been.
So
in
she
there.
probably just went down from 29 to 2,400. Does that sound right?
Maybe.
Because there's only $2,000 there.
No, I'll tell you exactly what it is when I find my notes. It's
Okay.
gonna, it equals exactly what was in miscellaneous. So it was $2,900 in miscellaneous, and the $2,900 was split 1,000 to training and education, 1,000 to the dues, 500 for fill-in, and 400 to the assistant
Okay.
town clerk salary. And
Okay.
that was to cover 3 additional Wednesdays or overtime if needed. And the $500 for fill-in would cover expenses if Maureen or Sue were needed to come in to cover the office based on 3 days.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Any questions, other questions regarding the town clerk's department?
Not an over. I mean, just nothing that needs to be changed. I just, for future purposes, I think, because I raised one of the points about the miscellaneous
Yes.
expense line. Like, I
Yes.
don't necessarily need the miscellaneous expense line to be 0, but that if we know what, like, because it was $3,000, so if we knew where some of that was going, that it did get, like, I guess, parsed out to the point that it could be. So, you know, I don't know that I necessarily need there to be like a do not use line.
Oh, the only,
Oh, do you know what I mean?
Because
Yeah,
probably for this year.
it's
So,
gonna, it's gonna drop
Okay.
off. It's just for this year and it's gonna drop off.
so Donna knows not to put anything in there. It makes sense. It does
Okay.
sound like Robin knew what the dollars she planned to use the miscellaneous for this year were earmarked for, and she had talked to us about that. So Donna was able to move those into other departments. But I hear what you're saying, and that if she believes that there's some, legitimate miscellaneous that wouldn't fit into a prescribed department.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and
I just wanted to be
appreciate
clear
Robin
that it
taking a look at
wasn't
that.
my argument to say you're not allowed to ever have a do not use, but that if you do know, because she had mentioned that she did know where some of it was going,
Mhm.
then it should, in that case, it should be broken out. So that was my point. Just wanted to make sure that I wasn't.
And I appreciated her taking that feedback from us, because I think as a whole, most of our departments have gone away from using miscellaneous. And what miscellaneous departments we do have, categories we do have within departments are relatively small dollars. Okay, so John, did you have any questions regarding the town clerk? And you're muted. You got to figure out how to use your mute button again.
No, I guess not.
Okay. So again, you'll see that the salaries, both the current assistant and current town clerk, are not reflected here. Donna has accounted for those in the placeholder. She left these flat for sake of leaving all dollars the same. Okay. That will move us to the next page, page 5 of your document, page 4 of the budget, town hall operations. Right, this is going to be a bigger one, and so we briefly talked about some of these items last week, and Donna has been able to calculate for the remainder of the items. So you'll see the big increases are in computer expense. And I believe I spoke to you about our portion of the computer expense being just over $111,000, and having that big project of moving us to Microsoft Office in this one-time year was a cost of approximately $38,000. What I did have a meeting with Novus on Friday, and they were, I apologize, it was Thursday or Friday. They were going to be taking another look at that quote today and have numbers to me tomorrow. So the time didn't fit into our budget time. There may be some additional savings within some of the software that would be affected by that cloud storage, where specifically we may be able to take the expense out of here and put it into the departments that use that software. like QDS and or vision, and put them in either, the tax collector or assessor's line items where they belong. So they were taking another hard look at that for us. So I expect to have some numbers for that tomorrow, and I will pass along any changes that come of that. So my goal, especially in this year more than ever, is every dollar we can spend before we finalize the budget, I anticipate decreasing. I hope not increasing, but for sure decreasing and not leaving those larger numbers to sit. So that is a significant increase, but again, that would be a one-time increase. Next year, we would see a much smaller increase because we wouldn't have the man hours to IT to do the project. The next large increase is 531 postage expense to the TOB. And that's an increase of $3,002. And again, as you know, we estimate the amount of postage we use based on the current cost of postage. And on January 1st, postage went up 1 cent. Basic letter. So on our meter postage. So we want to account for that. And we see an increase. This one is a little bit harder to gauge. I know some towns, and Donna, maybe you can enlighten me as to whether or not it's ever been done here. The postage is never broken up by the department that utilizes the postage. So it is a little bit harder to track where the postage usage or increases are coming from. We know this year we had an increase in usage from town clerks, and some of their monies went back into their departments, not necessarily into the postage because it was given to town clerks and or registrar of voters, but they don't pay for their own postage out of their department. So the bulk of our postage comes from the tax office in reminder bills, our normal annual regular billings in January and July, as well as monthly reminder billings to folks. The assessor sends out large quantities a couple of times a year as well. The next increase is in fire alarm monitoring. So the 720, you'll see an increase there, and 2 lines down under security system monitoring, you'll see a decrease. So it's a net increase of 470. Our current monitoring company is getting out of the monitoring business, alarm monitoring business, and this is based on a quote from a state vendor. We would, instead of having 2 separate units in this building, we would have 1. Therefore, it would be 1 cost for monitoring. All right, moving down, you'll see the next increase is on the TOB electricity lease. It's a $186 increase. And then you'll see a nice decrease in heating oil and our estimates of heating oil to the town office building to $41.53, which is down $1,298 from the current fiscal year in the spring of last year, while dealing with our vendor. The superintendent and I, with Donna's assistance, we were able to secure a much smaller cost. We are currently paying $2.15, and we'll be paying $1.64 for heating oil. So we did lock in last year, hoping, against hope, that as things were falling last spring, that they would bounce back up and we would end up on the plus side of that swing, and knock on wood. Unfortunately, for those of us who are buying individually, we're seeing an uptick, but we should be benefiting from that in our heating oil and our diesel fuel. So we get to Public Works, you'll see that. So that brings the overall increase in town hall operations to $42,721. And again, the majority of that is the one Microsoft Office 365 project. Any comments or questions?
It's quite a leap, and I understand, especially the computers are a big thing. So we'll have to do the best we can with those, but I do understand the need for them.
I do, John. It's a tough pill to swallow. That number was shocking to me. But it is a large undertaking and not one I'm sure we could have done with our previous vendor. And if we can parse out those numbers, I would like to do that. The other item we discussed with them was how we could show the decrease in the cost that we're paying now. So in that $111, there is some cost for the method in which we are running now, and we'll be able to see a decrease in that. So in that number, that besides the software costs offset, they're looking to be able to show us the offset that the town will see. The school side won't see a decrease in it, but the town side should. We divide up the dollars in a split, a 53-47 split, where we take 53% of the bill, but I'd like us to be able to take our offset. Just so you know, the $38,000 project was not split between school and town. We are, at the end of the day, the money's all come from the same tax pot, but it was important for us to reflect the increase to the town side and not in a shared service, because that is not in fact a shared service. It would have looked a whole lot nicer for us if we could have only taken 53% though. But it wouldn't be real reflective cost. And I apologize, I misspoke. Heating oil is $163.42. The diesel fuel is $164.22. And so that is down from $2.14 a gallon. So that was a big savings. I apologize. Let me get my screen back here. Okay. The next item is town hall operations. This is the old town hall. There is an overall decrease of $692, and that is the savings you see in the cost of heating oil. And consulting engineers, there is an increase of $5,000 over this current fiscal year. I'll remind you that we spoke about going back to the $10,000 ask that we had originally had in 2021. The Board of Finance during the final budget process last year cut both of those accounts to $7,500. Land use already has some items on their radar for this current year. So I think we'll see the expended change, and public works as well. And we're looking at spending about $4,500 right off the bat next year with a project that's in CIP, the Liska Road project. Any questions regarding Old Town Hall or consulting engineers? None from Liza, none from John. Okay. The next page is senior center operations. You'll see they have a decrease in their insurance, in water service, in their heating oil, a slight uptick in cable costs, and the fire alarm monitoring. The fire alarm monitoring increases because they too would be having a new panel over there. And that reflects the new cost. But it's an overall, a net decrease of $336 to the senior center. And I really hope that by the time this budget is enacted, they'll be able to start to see some in-person services happening over there. We're really making some progress with vaccines, certainly with our most vulnerable population. This week, there'll be an uptick to 65 and over. So, Don, I think you're in there. Get ready. And so hopefully it will add a little bit more of a layer of security, and the senior center will be able to get back to a little bit of a new normal. Any questions regarding senior center operations? I'm sure the bulk of this budget work was done by Donna. Donna, we appreciate your assistance with that. Okay, seeing none, I'll move down the page to 233, the health district. There's an increase of $1,072. That budget, since we originally met, that budget was passed. And so we see a 3% increase in our health district costs. If ever there's a time to warrant an increase, it's now. They're doing the work of many over there with few. So they've gotten some federal dollars to offset some new positions so that they can continue to do the work that they're doing between testing and vaccine clinics. They certainly have been working overtime. Any questions on the health district? Seeing none. 235, fire, main, and hydrants. Donna has left that flat at 8626. Donna, is that contracted?
No, there's not a contract.
Okay. All right. Building official cost, there is an increase of net increase of $1,332. There's a slight increase in system support, the permit support, and then in our purchase service. The purchase service is what our contracted rate to the town of Bolton for our building official. So he doesn't show up on our salary line items, comes up in contracted services, and this was a negotiated contract done last March.
He will, so his increase is already factored in here, I take it.
That is correct, because we have a 3-year contract with the town of Bolton for his services. So he's not included in, he's not a union member, he's not included in our union negotiations.
So that means when we add up the whole shebang here, everybody will have to factor in our expectation that everybody else is going to have a plus in here except for him.
Everybody, yes. So he's not the only one. We contract our land use agent too. So his salary would not be reflected in any contract negotiations. It would only be with those who are not contracted. So in this contract was the town of Bolton had already done their contract pre-COVID. And then we negotiated a 3-year contract. So all right, with that, moving on to Public Works. All right, I assume Troy is probably going to want to put his camera back on. We may have questions here. There, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of page 7 of the budget, page 8 of your document. There's a total increase for Public Works of $327,563 for a total of 27.7%. There are a couple of noteworthy things where we can point out. You'll see item 3, Donna has accounted for 10 additional hours of Public Works admin. Troy's asking for his administrative assistant to work, to move from 15 hours to 25 hours. And that is an additional salary cost at the current rate of $10,696. In addition, down line 135, the second one, you'll see laborer full-time. Troy has asked for 2 full-time laborer positions. The cost in just salary here is $96,845.
Just going back to 124, is that going to change any benefits going from 10 to going up 10 hours?
I believe with our, well, I don't know, it's not afforded insurance now. So Donna, did you budget for additional benefits?
I budgeted for a waiver.
Okay, based on the census of current staff, she's budgeted for a waiver instead of actual benefits. But again, if we were to go forward with this and then a staff member leave and we looked at it again, we could be looking at an increase in insurance. So I figured let's start with the staffing positions, right? a part of a big conversation of, do you want to go through the entire budget and then come back to a department that we want to talk about? John, Leslie, do you want to,
Well, we,
take it as we have it? I mean,
yeah, if we're here, I mean, the staffing, obviously,
okay. So I have concerns. I 100% support Troy's request for the 10 additional hours. I have some concerns about how that would look. It is a union position, a 15-hour-a-week administrative assistant to a 25-hour-a-week individual who's used in a multitude of ways. I worry could change the entire nature of the position. So that's my first concern, because it really, Troy has a staff member now who is doing things that our past admin assistants have not done. So a lot of work outside of the office. He's also able to utilize them to do work when it snows. And so I think that really changes the course of the position in job description total. Look, I know we always have other related duties, but could we be really getting away from an admin assistant if we make this a 25-hour-a-week position? And again, I understand how the current individual is being used and how necessary it becomes sometimes to have someone, because I think we have a lack of someone. So if we increase that or added new laborers, would we not have as much of a need for the 10 extra hours of this position?
So I think that's part of, the overarching question, right? So, and so always the conversation has been propose what, for department heads and, for Troy, we talked about this specifically when you initially talked about your budget. Propose what you believe you need to run an effective department. We get every number, we crunch the numbers, and then we look at where we are. And, a $500,000+ increase for our overall budget probably is not going to fly. And so, we do have to look at where we're going to cut. So my question isn't necessarily a line by line question. It's more of, Troy, when you look at your overall budget and look at the fact that we probably are going to need to reduce to a certain extent, what are the areas in which you feel would be the most responsible place to remove some dollars? So you've been talking about the 2 additional labor positions for a couple of years. So is that something where you're prioritizing definitely needing that above the increased hours for the admin assistant, or vice versa, or the other way around? So I think we do need to look at it line by line, but also holistically in sort of prioritizing where the request for any additional expenses are going to go. Does that make sense?
It doesn't. Liza, can I piggyback when we asked Troy to comment on that? In addition, we've discussed, I think a little bit as a board here, certainly Troy and I have had many discussions here and at CIP about, if we had these 2 laborer positions, then there would not be a need for the snow contractors that we use. So those dollars are reflected in this budget under the snow portion of Public Works. So if we were to decide, yes, we could go with those, then we could deduct some dollars there. If we didn't go with these positions, we would need to change the contracted, current contracted cost out. So that's something else when we look at it, this, and Troy, and when you answer the question Liza's posing, that I think will need to be reflected.
Okay. I mean, we can go back for the admin position. So I don't know what I'm saying. I understand what Eric is saying. That position is more probably, Jay goes out and helps with parts. He helps snowplow. He does a lot more than just the admin assistant. He's one of those guys you can go to. So in the beginning, it was, how do I want to say, maybe it was easier to ask for Jay for 10 more hours than it was to get 2 people. Because I know asking 2 people is a lot. It's a huge increase. And 10 hours over the time for the admin is a lot cheaper. Getting the 2 laborers, more help the better. I mean, there's things that we're trying to do in town that we haven't done before. I do think it is a necessary thing. I think everything on the budget is necessary. I think some of the bigger increases come from, asphalt and stuff like that. You want to fix the roads, prices go up. And that's where some of that bigger stuff is. The fleet for I don't have an up-to-date budget. Exactly. I just still have the old one, but some of my increases, even for the repair parts, we've spent $60,000 in repairs this year already. So those items, do I need it next year? Yeah, unfortunately I do. It's one of those things that we can go from line to line and say, hey, we'll drop this, we'll drop this. I think there's a need for all of it. If you want to get rid of the laborers positions and just go with what we have, I totally understand. There is a huge increase there, but I also think that we could use everything that's on the budget.
So are you saying if the increases that you have to the overall running of your department, if you had to, you think the laborers are vital? I think you've asked us for in 2 different versions over the last 2 years, that they are incredibly vital to being able to do more, but that you would forego that expense in order to have some of the other costs of running the department more effectively.
More effectively. I mean, go back to the road money. I mean, I think we need more money in the roads. Do I sacrifice the 2 laborers for that? Okay, sure. Your roads are in need of repair. If we cut that out and we cut everything, then we're still back in the same position we are now. It's hard. I totally understand everybody's point on this. You know what I mean? I'm not here to raise anybody's taxes. I just, there's certain things that I think we need in the town. I said last year, and I'll say it again, next year or the year after. I do believe we need to increase certain things.
And I know we had a lot of conversation over last year, John, again, you weren't with us through all these discussions, but Troy had asked of us a mechanic, and that was the additional person he was asking for, thinking that we could save in some of those costs we had with our aging fleet. And then after some, real thought about it, we may or may not have the infrastructure, right, for a mechanic. A mechanic is incredibly expensive, the going rate of a mechanic out there compared to what we would have budgeted at, as well as making sure then, once you have a mechanic, they need to have all of the necessary tools in order to be an effective mechanic. So when given that, Troy took another look at it and thought maybe the laborers were the better bang for the buck in staffing. But again, I can't help but go back to, I know what your current admin assistant does, and I know the nature in which he does it, and he's incredibly vital. When your very small crew is out doing a project, he's able to go assist them with getting parts that they needed or do some other things that you're not able to send them out to do. But I again worry that changing that position could change the category of it with the union and the negotiations, and could change the overall cost of that position.
So you mentioned Troy plowing. Is that something that the admin assistant currently will do?
Yeah, Jay actually has his own run where he does the parking lots. He does all the whole school. He helps Lou out down where he is. He's got his run. He runs the 450 with a sander on it, and he's a vital asset. You can ask any one of those guys. That truck broke down the other day, and the guys were basically in tears wanting to know what we could put him in to get it going again.
So is that something that, though, is in his current job description?
It wasn't before the previous. He just said that he would volunteer to help out, and he's helped out, and it's a tremendous help. I mean, him and I shoveled the roof off of the town hall today.
I think some of it comes from, he was, prior to being the admin assistant, was the assistant transfer station operator. And so he jumped into that role. And so he's continued to offer that assistance. But I worry, especially if we increase this to a part-time, a part-time with benefits position, that then we completely change the nature of the job, and the union might see it as such.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping the union's not watching our meeting tonight. And we, well, if you wanted to add 2 new positions plus the 10 hours extra, that would be 90 hours per week. That's a lot. That's a big jump. And it's also,
I mean, it's a needed, I don't argue with you at all, Troy. It's a needed jump. There
Yeah.
are areas in which we are sorely under resourced, and I say it all the time. Can we phase in positions? Can we start with like proposing 1 new position for this year? And then I agree with Erica. I think the question about the role of the admin assistant probably needs some critical thinking. And so then if the admin assistant really needs to be serving as a laborer, then that's a conversation that I think we need to have. And so maybe the conversation isn't all, it's not, I mean, it never has to be all or nothing. It can be a phased in, like, this year we would like to add 1 new laborer position, leave the other pieces where they are, 1 new laborer position, and then come revisit next year and see where we are if we need another laborer position and we still need the increase in hours for the admin. To me, that seems like something that's more of a measured implementation than a big increase in staffing in 1 fiscal year.
And my reason for thinking, Troy, again, we have lots of conversations, you and I, about what it is that your staff is doing, the manner in which they're doing it, and how we could do it better and more effectively. So while I support that, my concern is that when that admin assistant is no longer in that position and you hire someone who's an admin assistant by the job description, you may get a traditional administrative assistant, and then can we justify that many hours a week if they weren't doing the other pieces of the job? And so that's where I worry that, while it could be done and it could have multifaceted areas, that may or may not change the category within the union in which that position that holds. Therefore, we may not be budgeting the correct amount of dollars for that position. And that's really my biggest concern. So I would be curious to see if we could take a look at this and see what it looked like with 1 laborer, with the admin effectively where it is now. And if we added that new laborer, I think we could remove, excuse me, lights go out, the contracted plow, right? So our plow contract is currently, will end next year. So we'll go out to bid this summer. And as you both may know, excuse me, we have 1 contractor. We were only able to get 1. So we did put a staff member in a vehicle to plow. And so our budget is reflective of 1. Troy, is that correct? And so we would need to, if we took that 1 out and had to hire a laborer, there would be an offset of costs there. This is a PDF, so I can't do the down and dirty to see what that would change.
So are we talking about,
If
so
you go
if
down
we're
to,
looking at 311,
Yeah.
is it 422 where
Yes.
that's, okay.
yeah,
So
if we took those 23,265 out,
mhm.
dropped the laborer from 2 to 1 and took the admin assistant out, if we could see what that does for this whole dollar amount, that would also take out the waiver of the admin assistant and benefits from the 1 laborer we would not add. Again, I could argue all day there is a need for more personnel. There's no doubt. We have an incredibly small crew who works, they all work incredibly hard, and they are doing the work of more than 4 full-time individuals. We have a smaller crew by at least 2, than our closest neighboring town, which is similar in size to us. So we do ourselves a disservice. We contract out the snow plowing, but then forget that when the snow plowing isn't happening, we have lots of other work to do and still have a smaller crew. But in these tough economic times, I'm just not sure if we could handle the uptick in personnel and the uptick in infrastructure. And I know from talking with Troy, and he said it to us multiple times, our infrastructure needs some help. And the only way we're going to start to get ahead of some of this road work is to put some money into it. So, I know we're asking him to, pick his favorite child here, people or infrastructure. And that's difficult because he's been very clear to us that we are lacking in both.
Well, and I understand you can't have completely, like, you can't completely run infrastructure without people, right, to pay
Right.
attention to the infrastructure. So I understand that.
Yeah.
And I don't know that anybody's arguing that point. It's just the option of doing it all at once or doing it phased in a way that takes into account our current financial situations.
I agree. I'm just looking, I'm going to try to go side by side here into the spreadsheet that I have. Let's see what that does. Apologize, you're going to hear me talking to myself, but not see anything. Donna, what was the cost for one laborer?
$48,422.
I'm sorry, 48,000.
Yep, 422.
Thank you. Well, my rough calculations bring that total public works cost down to 244,771 from 327,563.
Now, that would be cutting down to one laborer.
That's one laborer, and because we added a laborer, I removed the contracted snow removal.
Does
And
that
then-
make sense to, is that enough to, like, is that enough personnel? Having an extra laborer to remove the snow removal contractor?
The contractor has a contracted plow route. So that's all that they do. They come in, they're called in specifically just to plow a 12, 13 mile route, maybe longer. And so the idea is that this individual, correct, Troy, if I recall our conversations, the individual laborer that we hired could then have a plow route. And so
Okay.
there wouldn't be a need to call someone in. In the past, we've hired two. We facilitated with one person from our staff to do that now. And now we would just move that second person in.
So we would also, now we would do away with the contractor. We'd cut or not increase the admin assistant. We'd leave him at, where is he, 15 hours a week now,
Mhm.
1 week. So that would cut another,
In my rough spreadsheet calculations, Donna's probably writing feverishly, but not putting it into her spreadsheet. She has a final one. So I reduced the hours of the part-time admin assistant. I reduced to one laborer and removed the snow contract. And that takes us down to roughly 244,771. I say roughly because I haven't completely compared my spreadsheet to Donna's that we just got.
what is that? So
That-
that's in the dollar change is what you're saying, that 200 and something $1,000.
Yes,
Okay.
correct. That middle item would be 244, where on Donna's spreadsheet, it is.
It's like 327.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta make sure I pull up the right one. 2528, okay. Yeah, 327 down to 4. I gotta stop scrolling here. To 244, so. And then we would see a decrease in when we get to the benefits portion. Do you want to see that cost out with the full big picture? Or do we want to take a look at some more of this overall budget?
No, I think see how that looks in the full big picture
Okay.
is important. And I don't know if it has any impacts on other purchases such as asphalt and, you know, does decreasing essentially half the number of new hours that Troy had been proposing, does that have any impact on, you know, the number of miles of road that one would be even able to repave or chip seal or whatever?
I'll let
So,
Troy answer that. If we cut you the two, this plan was built around the possibility of having 2 additional laborers. And Liza's question is, would that impact any of your other increases, specifically in roads?
All right, I'm confused. So
Would taking away a laborer affect how you would spend the dollars in some of the other areas, specifically road?
no, because
And in chip seal, we
It's done by a
contract that out, right?
yeah, and then the asphalt would be done by a contractor. So
Okay.
that's not, it has really nothing to do with any, you could get rid of both people. It doesn't really matter. It's
okay, I just wanted to
Don't offer that up. Okay.
just wanted to ask that question because I wasn't
Okay,
100%
and
sure.
I'm gonna ask a question that with Troy will probably be unpopular, but I'd like to true this up. When we look at the chip seal, we don't rent a truck. Correct, Troy? We don't do that anymore. So we've got $20,000 in truck rental. Are you utilizing it for something else within the chip seal program? And does it make more sense for us to put the real dollars where they belong?
sometimes, yeah. I mean, it does. Years ago, they used to rent the trucks as what
Yeah.
they would haul the stone in.
There's always some concern I have if we take them away and put them in another item within that budget, and then you want to put them back later on. It looks like a massive increase. But are we being true to the budget if we're keeping money in stone in truck rental when we're using it in other areas within that budget? Where's the best way to reflect how the dollars are being spent? Because they're all being spent is the bottom line. We're just not utilizing necessarily in the manner in which we show the budget. And that's really, I think Troy's going in keeping with what we've been doing. So that's more a question to John and Liza. When I look down under snow at the chip seal, 440 and 680 are what I'm talking about specifically.
Well, I mean, if they're not used for that purpose and they're used somewhere else,
We should put them where they are.
we
So
should put them where
increase
they're
the-
used.
Increase the asphalt or increase the oil roller and chipper where it is that we're using it.
Right.
I don't think it's not gonna change the overall bottom line of that subsection, but I think it's better for us to true budget where those dollars are being spent.
Absolutely. Because if anybody comes back later and says, hey,
Yeah.
you didn't rent a truck, yet $20,000 was budgeted for it. then that becomes a problematic conversation.
It was-
Where
Is that just an older way of doing the chip seal, Troy?
Yeah, that's, they used to rent the trucks out and then it was broken down, but now it's when you hire the contractor, it's the stone and everything's included.
Included, all right.
That's
So
right.
maybe put those dollars, well, you'll know best if you'll recategorize them where you think that they belong, because it will, we're trying to justify what could potentially be a significant increase here. And part of that is going to be making sure we really have trued up where we're actually spending dollars. And they are being spent on our roads just in a different manner than before. So that conversation didn't save us any dollars, folks, just so you know. Just redistributed the wealth.
You know,
Donna, oh, John, go ahead.
looking at what we have here for the chip sealing, if I'm a stranger walking in and looking at it, it looks an awful lot like we're doing it ourselves. Would there be a way that, you know, dedicate it for a contractor if we're having it done by a contractor?
Troy? Did we do it ourselves before and that's why it's split into those projects, or do you pay for those things separately from your vendor?
Well, no, before it was you rented the trucks and then you bought the stone, where now everything is combined into one thing. So if you wanted to take those line items and put it into where the 115,000 is for the oil roller and chipper, and then put the 20,000 on top of that, and then the 10,000, and then knock the $35,000 increase off that.
So you're saying you'd use the same amount of dollars, we just have one line item called
Yeah,
chip seal.
exactly. There's a lot of stuff that's in this budget that does the same thing with the crack seal. There's crack seal, there's chip seal, crack seal, and then there's crack seal and a different thing. And I said this before, they should be all in one line item, so then it's equal. So there's different things where you can combine this budget.
Because the crack seal you have above in 683 and just your public works budget, my understanding has been that's been crack seal. And again, I think public works directors prior to you probably did it in a different manner. They would chip seal separate things from the chip seal area and then spend a certain amount of money on the chip sealed roads, where Troy, correct me if I'm wrong, this past year, you just had them go out and crack seal.
Yep.
Right? And then you chip sealed over the roads that needed to be chip sealed, but there's crack sealing elsewhere other than the roads that are getting chip sealed this year.
Yes.
But under the chip seal area, that's one particular project where you're doing 7 on average miles of road annually. Would the chip seal stay separate from that because you use a separate vendor, correct?
Yes. And the crack seal is a separate vendor and the chip seal is a separate vendor.
So you're saying we could take the truck rental, oil, roller and chipper, stone and asphalt, zero these line items out and just use one line item that is chip seal.
Correct. Well, the chip seal asphalt is for like asphalt, like if we were, like we paved the portion of Village Hill, we fixed that. That's where that money came from.
Okay.
Like that's where.
But we used to do either the stone or the asphalt.
No, we've done the stone for the 2 years that I've done. The first year I spent 151,000 in chip seal. And then last year I spent 117,000 because I needed to keep it under that. So that's what basically I gave him a list of roads and he fit to what
Right.
the budget I had.
But calling chip seal and asphalt in those large amounts are really two different things. You're not chip sealing over asphalt.
No, asphalt is asphalt. Like if you're going to pave, like say if we were going to pave Old Farms again, that asphalt, that's where that would come out of. The chip seal is roughly, we can do about 6 miles of road a year with just that 115,000.
Is there ever a time we put some asphalt down before we chip seal?
No, you can't do that.
Okay.
Sit for a year.
But again, it begs the question, why do we call it chip seal asphalt? And I
don't
think
know.
that's to Liza's question. Troy breaks it out in the manner in which it's always been done. And I think it's time for us to rethink how we are expressing the dollars we're spending.
I think
Again,
that makes a lot of sense. I
yeah.
think this budget is not, I mean, the budget needs to be completely understood by the public so that when they look at this, they are absolutely understanding what they're voting upon. And B, it should be useful to you, Troy, so that you are able to look at the line item and know exactly what it's for, not have to do any fancy math to make sure all the numbers are adding up. I'm sorry, there's a World War III going on in the bed over here.
Because
but
we
I'm
used, I think
so
we
sorry.
used to do a DIY method, and so we piecemealed the cost together, and that's where this budget derived from, but it's no longer the way in which we're operating business. We're hiring a contractor who's doing all of the work.
The long and short of what I'm saying is I'm absolutely for collapsing things into simpler, fewer line items if that's how it's used and that's how it makes sense.
So I really see you use some of that asphalt money to do asphalt though, correct?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
So to me, I see three things: chip seal, asphalt, crack seal,
Correct.
all as part of the, and I don't know why we call it chip seal because it's really road maintenance to me.
Right,
Or, you know, if we called it chip seal / asphalt, I was going to say program, that, sorry, the words have escaped me. Project, right? So it's our annual, sometimes we put asphalt down on a road and sometimes we chip seal it,
We can do
And-
both.
depending on what's needed.
What's
But
needed.
to one road, you wouldn't do the same.
No.
Right. All right. Again, that conversation did not save us any dollars. Sorry to say, but I think cleaning it up when we go to Board of Finance, when we're going to our voters and our residents and justifying how we're spending the dollars, it's important that they understand it in the same manner that we do.
Well, there's another thing too, is the dry hydrants, that line item 578,
I knew that was going to come up.
$1,000 there that has nothing to do with. Why is that even in the budget?
And so I think, and I'm Troy, I don't have that contract in front of me, but I think in the fire services agreement, it says that we take care of it. But to Troy's point, he doesn't spend the money. Someone else is spending the money in the fire department, but we're paying for it. So it's coming out of the selectmen's budget, but Troy's not ever spending the dollars. So it's really hard to, no matter how much money it is, to ask one of our department heads to be responsible for dollar amounts. And he never sees anything that has to do with those dollar amounts being spent. And what, no, there it is. So it's $1,000. But is this the best place for it to be in the selectmen's budget? Is there a different area in which it would go? Where, there was another line item. I guess it really doesn't fall under emergency management. Would it be more clear, Donna, if this were a subcategory under fire, main, and hydrant? The dry hydrant? Or would that be completely inappropriate?
I would have to think it through.
Okay, let's give that some thought. The dollars would still reflect in the selectmen's budget, but they would be out of the public works budget. But hey, it's $1,000. Again, not out of the overall, but out of the bigger picture.
I mean, how much do you want to how much do you want to cut out of there? I mean, there's some of it, I mean, I can go down line by line. We can map it.
There's also another large increase in here, Troy. I think if we said we could only get to X number of dollars, I think you should need to be prepared to have some cuts that fall, you know, within what we say. But I think Liza's point was less about what we cut, but knowing where you prioritized. So in the event we take a look at the bottom line and say we just cannot move forward with this, we kind of know, and we did this last year. We spent a lot of time, Troy, you went over your budget and we sat down and talked about, all right, I still don't think it's the best thing to do or the best way to run your department, but if I only had X number of dollars, this is how I would spend it. I think you've been very clear with us that in order to begin to most effectively run our public works, these are some of the increases that you need to see. And I won't say completely because I think we've had the conversation about how we have some roads that are in some real rough shape. If we don't start putting some dollars into our infrastructure, we're going to be spending a whole lot more at one time. I will add line 940 is lease payment principal. You'll see that increased from 84,398 to 126. That comes from the CIP plan and items that we've previously purchased and are on lease, and things that we anticipate purchasing and using the lease payment method. And those are only for public works vehicles, so they fall into there. So the plan does have, I think, 3 vehicles in there, so there would be additional cost to the public works budget.
So, so I think there's not too much more that I am recommending to be cut. That doesn't mean that we're not going to come back and say that there needs to be more cuts all over the place, right? Like not just for public works, but again, I want to continue to push the Board of Finance, because we can't have flat budgets and 0% every year, every single year after year after year, and expect 0 increases every single year. It's just not feasible and it's not sustainable. So I do think we need to push on these items. I am more comfortable pushing on a phased implementation of increasing the staffing in public works rather than all at once to increase. So see how year 1, get an extra staff member, see how year 1 goes, see if we need more, see if there's still justification for a second full-time employee and moving other hours up. But again, I do want to send a budget over to the Board of Finance that does encourage investment in these important areas, not just in public works, but in all of the departments that we have increases, and for all of the reasons that Troy is saying, and we've been saying that we do need to invest in ourselves. I do, you said at the last meeting, Erica, that we do have, our grand list went up a small amount. We are above our 12% rainy day fund account. There can be money reinvested back into Wellington, and I think we need to encourage that to happen.
All right, let's we'll continue on past public works, and then go, John. Sorry, go ahead.
Question, Troy. I know you said that you're increasing the tree removal by how much? 100%, and you increase it even more if you could. Do we have that many trees lined up? Because I know there are bad trees in town. But if we took everyone down, well, actually, they'll probably make it pretty safe out there. But are we going to really take that many trees down over the year?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The problem is, John, is the price of it. One tree, linden tree gets $1,400 a day, whether they take 1 tree or take 5. So some of their big trees, like they're going to do some work on old farms by the school. There's about a half a dozen trees that got to come down. It's going to take them about 3 days to do the job. So you're looking at almost $4,000, $5,000 for just those trees. So, and that's just in one little short span by the school. I have pages in my office of trees, like lists of on a yellow paper of that front and back of trees that need to come down. I mean, just the ash trees, the oak trees from the gypsy moth. It's endless. Honestly, it truly is, and it's expensive.
I think Troy did talk to us specifically about the ash trees. I will say I'm less familiar with trees, and so we went on yet another field trip with Troy to take a look at these trees. And you may notice them as you're driving and don't give it much thought. At least I didn't. When you stop and really look at the trees, you can see how the ash trees are literally crumbling at the base of them. And it's unbelievable. And we certainly have a lot of those in the trees with the gypsy moth issues. So it's significant. I will tell you, he had requested a bucket truck from CIP. I think that's once again been cut from the plan so that we could try to do some of these. You'd still have to call in a contractor for some that were around power lines, but that some of these trees we could handle ourselves. But they weren't quite sure that with the staff that we have, that the investment of $100,000 bucket truck was something we could manage right now. So if we don't do that, then we have to get a contractor in here to get them down. And I know it's a lot, John, but $25,000 additional in trees is going to be significantly less than, heaven forbid, something terrible happen when one of these trees comes down and we're responsible.
This is so random, but I just got this in the mail, the Connecticut Tree Survey. Is this a thing that relates to that? Like, does anybody know what this is?
I haven't seen that. I don't know.
No?
Troy, you know what that is?
I think it is. I think it's, and then you can be part
Yeah.
of the committee and stuff. Yeah, that's on certain things.
Huh. All right, well, then I will open it and I will complete it and maybe help Willington out by saying we have a lot of trees that need to come down.
A lot of trees. Help us out. Send us some funding. All right, John, did you have any other questions about particular lines? Okay. I agree. It is a large pill to swallow. We got a lot of things that just haven't been done. When we continuously go to the zero that Board of Finance has asked, and we have increases in other departments, means we're cutting somewhere. A zero budget is actually a decreased budget. You're operating at a loss because we do have areas of increase, so we've had to cut somewhere. And we're only going to hurt ourselves. We can't sustain cuts. And so if we can find a way to incrementally get back to where we need to be.
And there's no such thing as a 0% or a flat budget because there are always factors beyond our control. There's a union contract, there's the cost of oil, sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. Rarely does it go down, mostly does it go up.
Right.
So
if we took straight across the board and left everything zero and just increased our contracted increases and then cut to zero, we're operating at a loss. So zero is a loss. It's not a flat budget.
no.
A flat budget is going to have contractual increases.
And that's why we can't, and that's why we need to push back, I think, against the annual no increases letter that we get, because it's just not feasible and it's not what's best for Willington.
And so that, I feel, is our responsibility, taking a look at the bigger picture, and the Board of Finance is looking at the financial state of the town. And then together we take a look at the two, once they've come up with an assumption of what that is and what we have, and we work together to try to find some balance there, but continuously going with no increased spending is really, it's not doing our infrastructure any good, that's for sure. But what I don't want to do is take a massive tax increase to our residents either. Understand that may not fly, but we need to take a look at what we need to effectively operate this town. So that brings us to the cemetery was a $2,000 flat. They get $2,000, and the transfer station operates. This year we're asking for a $29,000 increase. And the majority of those increases are in trash and bulk waste disposal. And that was our new contract had an increase. And if we can decrease and get that contract down, we will not stop trying to do that too. So I want people to know that it's not always a one and done, but sometimes contracts don't come out in our favor. Sometimes we do, we can get them lowered, but sometimes we can't, because at the other end is a business who has to operate in their best interest at the same time. Any questions regarding transfer station? Okay, seeing none. Capital reserve. These are dollars that the CIP committee recommends that we put into the capital reserve. You can see right now at the current state the plan is at, it's a decrease of $84,000. Again, the plan is not complete, neither is year one. So I don't know that it will stay that way. When the committee takes a look at the entire plan. We have to determine whether only putting in $96,000 can sustain our capital reserve to do projects years down the road. And with this dollar amount, that may make it difficult. So there's a balance between everything we have and then this capital plan. The housing authority is flat at 2182. Excuse me. Accrued sick days is down to $10,000 from 15,000. Donna, is that based on the current census of employees? Is that what that is?
Yes.
I did have a question on this
Sure.
one, for Donna. Do I
Yeah.
remember this? Is this, kind of a cumulative fund that we keep?
It is like a savings account
Right.
for the employees who have accumulated a sick day payout per
Right.
the terms of an early contract. And so the money is saved so that when the time comes and they retire, then they receive their payout for
Right.
accumulated sick days and any unused vacation.
And are we, because I know that some years ago, we were in a kind of in a bind on this. We were way low, and so that's why we
Yep, yep.
We changed the policy, right? So any employee after 2012, right? Is that correct? I believe that's the
I believe it
timeframe.
is 2012. I believe
2012.
it is 2012 that
The
the contract
amount, yeah,
changed.
the contract change in what their upon retirement or leaving the town, what their sick day payout was. And so as those employees who were here prior to 2012 leave or retire, you'll see a reduction in that number, correct, Donna?
Yes,
so we're no longer going to be putting ourselves in a bind here by decreasing this one, right?
no, we're not, because we have enough money in the fund to cover. If the town stopped to exist on July 1 and we had to pay everybody out, we'd have enough money to pay them all out.
Okay. I'm glad.
Donna's not advocating for that possibility, just so.
Okay. That's
Thank
the
you, Donna. The dog fund grant, it's under the selectmen's budget, and this is from our animal control officer. And so Tina's request is an additional $282. I apologize, I'm opening my
covered that last week.
book. See when we saw Tina. I'm trying to remember what that increase was from. Okay. In
She-
her
She
request on,
reduced her revenue, Erica. She reduced
Okay.
her revenue by $250 for dog warden fees.
It-
And then so she had an increase in a $32 increase
in
in
propane,
in
because you adjusted
expenses.
the salary, correct?
Her
did you not?
salary, no, her salary is not adjusted here. It's in the placeholder.
But here, I mean, from the sheet she gave us, so from the attachment she
Yeah.
gave us, this reflects 0%, not 2%.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's why the numbers don't add up to what I have, but that makes sense now. Thank you. Okay, human services grant. This is Jenny's grant to the town. I will mention here, it's not something that Jenny mentioned to us when she met with us. Currently, Our summer camp program has been a collaborative effort between Parks and Rec and the Human Services Department. Jenny did not budget for that. And she, if you look at the sheet she gave us, she didn't mention it to us, and none of us had asked her about that. I did go back through our meeting minutes, but she did highlight that at the Board of Finance, that she has not budgeted any dollars. So therefore, the increases in both revenue and expense would have to fully come out of the Rec Commission grant in order for us to fully offer a summer camp program. Of course, we don't know what that will look like. We don't know what things will be in place this summer, or what obstacles will be in our path. But I think it's important that, I'm not sure. It's been a collaborative effort between the two departments, but the budget doesn't reflect that. So whether or not we feel that it's necessary to keep that in Human Services Department or fully in the Rec Department. Again, then you're taking 2 staff members working on a project down to 1, and that's a significant difference, certainly to the Rec Department. At the end of the day, the dollars from the bottom line of the town government budget wouldn't change, but within the Human Services grant and the Selectmen's budget, there could be a difference. There is no current request for open space. You'll see that at 0. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at mine, not Donna's. Okay. All right, Social Security. Donna has left that flat at 86,955. Unemployment, we've left it $1,000. We don't have any anticipated unemployment, and when we do not anticipate, we use that $1,000 as a placeholder in the event we have any. Health insurance line item, I will tell you, as of Friday, and it was confirmed today, we were able to lock in from what we thought would be an 8% increase to health insurance to 2%. So I said, as soon as we knew that, we would budget for that. So there, in health insurance, there is only a 2% increase. You see a much more significant increase because there is a placeholder for salary dollars for negotiations. And there is one placeholder for insurance itself, correct, Donna? And I believe we placeholder E+1.
There are positions budgeted for the two new laborers budgeted at family.
At family, but we have one placeholder. If
One
someone were to
placeholder,
change,
E+1.
E+1. So this includes 2 new laborers. This would change
Yes.
down to 1 laborer if we
Yes.
did that. And then the waiver would change if we did not increase
Yes.
the admin assistant.
Correct.
Okay. And again, it is only a 2% increase. It wouldn't be till after negotiations you'd see that number fully wash out. And so that's going to go down. That's the one number, John, when I did my simple calculations, I did not account for what that decrease would be in the benefits. And the pension fund is an increase of $60. It's a big one. Hold on.
Cut it.
You got cut it. That's it. It's gone. Workers, the next department is our insurance, our workers' comp, our LAP, other insurances and volunteer liability insurance. We did get a 3% reduction in our workers' comp, and we are assuming a 3% increase in LAP. Is that correct, Donna? But
Yes.
number?
That's correct.
Okay. So the 3% is only $5?
Yes, because the 2021 is overstated.
Ah, I like it. Your number is way better than mine, so we'll take it. So that was something we just learned late last week, was the 3% on our workers' comp pool. So we were happy to get that for both the town and the Board of Ed. And again, I said to you that we will pass along every savings we get the minute we get it. We're certainly not holding them here Miscellaneous is 1750. Donna, can you talk to us about some of the things we've spent out of miscellaneous?
Yes, it's really random things,
It is.
you
Is
know,
that-
flowers.
That's where we have our, right, okay. I want to make sure I'm talking about the right miscellaneous. If we had a staff member who was ill, a staff member who lost a loved one, we were sending condolence flowers or some sort of congratulatory, someone retired, we might use this miscellaneous. So there's some random items in there, and you can see we sometimes it's used a little bit more. The numbers may be a little off this year. That is where we put some COVID expenses to this year. So there would be some increases and some offsets because they were unplanned expenses. And then the debt service, again, comes from, you'll see that listed out in our CIP plan. The bond principal, that's the bond on the library. The lease payments on the animal control officer and some SCBA equipment for one of the fire departments. And general bond increase, interest. So that's actually decreasing $6,000. And then the capital expenditures, that those are the local dollar projects in the CIP plan as it stands. And currently we're looking at spending an additional 150, almost 150,300 on capital expenses in 930. So if we'd made no changes, that left our budget flat at 14.7, an additional $518,000. So Donna, if you could adjust for some of the changes that we talked about in Public Works and the staffing changes
Yes,
and the insurances that go along with us, and then show us what that looks like, then we can move forward to see what else. In
What
the
happens if we
meantime,
take
and
that-
Troy, do you mean to be unmuted? And then we'll take a look from there to see what that bottom line looks like. I'm hoping we might have some more significant year one figures out of CIP after this week. And then if that we can shore that up, we know what we're talking about. That actually also gets approved. It will move from the CIP committee to the Board of Selectmen to approve because it is included in our budget. So they will do the work and then we will approve it. So their chairman will come to speak before us, talk about that. And then for general information purposes, you can see right now where the budget stands as a whole to the town. Donna, the Region 19 number, that's significantly different than what the superintendent had shared with me back in January. Excuse me. Is this a new number that they've given you?
it is not. It's an old number that I took from the budget book last year on their projection this year.
Okay, I'll share with you. Our email had been quirky and I reached out to Region 19 today just to see where they're at. I know they're just starting to meet with their budget. If the number I've been given is right, it's higher than that. Much, much higher than that. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but we'll see. All right, so currently, I believe this was our last scheduled budget meeting specifically for budget. I won't speak for the two of you, but I'm not sure that without looking at those changes, I'm ready to significantly say this, yes, this is a budget I want to move forward to the Board of Finance. I think we need at minimum one more meeting dedicated just to the budget. The Board of Finance would like our budget 1 week before, but what I think is more important is that we do the work on the budget to get them the best budget from this board. And if that means we have to take a little bit more time and they get it in a little less than a week, I think that's probably the most prudent method. Don't know what snow will do for us and whether or not it will delay any of our ability to meet. Because as you know, we are stuck in a snow globe and it does not seem to be ending. So I would propose that we meet again next week. Your schedules, Monday is a holiday. I won't speak for either of you. I'm not opposed to meeting, but it is a holiday for our staff.
There's always Tuesday.
There is always Tuesday.
I think I even had it on my calendar for Tuesday
Okay,
already
great.
that we were going to be meeting.
So we want to try shoot for 5:30 on Tuesday,
Tuesday, the 16th.
Tuesday the 16th.
We can do that.
Okay.
Yep.
All
That's
right.
fine.
And then we'll take them, one at a time after that. Okay. All right, so we will schedule that and we'll take another look at this. If you have, once again, I say, if you have any specific questions about any one department, if you can pass those along, get those into Heather, we will disseminate those to department heads so we could hopefully have the answers prior to our meeting. I think it's important that when we meet, we have the answer. So if we're curious ahead of time, let's go ahead and ask the question. And then we'll see what it looks like with making the adjustments that we did to Public Works. And Donna, we can meet and talk about what it looks like to clean up some of those departments and how difficult that is and what it should look like. You want to give it some thought. All right, anything further budget related? No. Okay. And just so you know, I don't have any information from the state. Governor's budget should be coming out. Don't have a set date on that. And so I don't have any information about dollars to the town, but we'll share it with you as well as the Board of Finance as soon as we get it. All right, seeing no further questions or comments. Donna, do you have anything else?
No.
No, okay. Troy, anything else you wanted to share?
What about, could you run two things if you took the labor positions, both of them right out of there? And how much it would cut?
Sure.
I mean, that, and then, tomorrow I'll go through this again there. I mean, there's some stuff, yeah, I can go line by line. I mean, not that I believe that we should cut it, but if
Right.
there.
Can you give us two scenarios, Donna, if we didn't add any of the extra labor but left everything else in, and if we cut the labor as we described?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So you then, in your second scenario, the 10 additional hours stay in. Is that what you like to see, Troy? Or that's gone?
Well, if you cut both of the labor positions, yeah, I would like to keep.
You would keep that back in.
there, yes. If
Yeah.
it doesn't screw up things with the union or how that works. But I mean, if no hours is better than, if I can get Jay for 10 more hours is better than having nothing again.
All right, and we'll share with Donna, Troy, tomorrow what the dollars for the contracted rate would need to be. Because one of the things, John and Liza, we didn't touch on here is that our contracted rate, and we believe some of the reason we're having difficulty maintaining contractors is the rate in which we pay, significantly less than what they can get somewhere else. And again, we're not talking about someone who plows with their personal vehicle in places. We're talking about someone who would have to have a dump truck and insurance on it and some other items, and that they can go to the state and make significantly more. And so the number wouldn't be the 23,000 that we'd use, it would be increased dollars. And Donna Troy has that in his office. I think we're looking at 60,000, which would be the high end at approximately $200 an hour. So, okay.
Yeah, that just goes across the board to everything and everyone that we
Yeah.
pay and do.
At some point, you start to get what you pay, and what we've gotten is less vendors who are able to give us, to sustain those dollar amounts in these times. All right, seeing no other comments, questions, concerns, I will move to adjourn at 8:06.
Second,
Seconded by Liza. All in favor?
Aye.
I
Aye. Thank you very much. Donna, thank you. Heather, thank you.
Welcome.
Good night, all.
Good
Bye.
night, John.
Hey, John.